Welcome to SKC Office Hour, the podcast where business owners get practical insights, forward-thinking strategies, and real conversations to help you grow and succeed. I'm Sarah Krom, and at SKC, we believe that running a business isn't just a career, it's a lifestyle. That's why each episode brings you expert perspectives on the topics that matter most, from tax strategy and financial clarity to leadership, growth, and everything in between. Whether you're scaling your business, navigating challenges, or planning for what's next, you're in the right place. Let's meet today's guest. Andrea Diaz, my partner at SKC. Welcome.
Thank you, Sarah.
You are here today to chat about what sophisticated business owners should watch and why.
Yes, it's very different than what most business owners immediately go to, which is revenue.
Money, money, money. But before we jump into the topic, I ask all of our guests to share with the audience 3 things that they should know about you.
Okay. One, I love dogs. 2, I'm an avid reader, so if you have any good recommendations, please share them. And 3, I'm in the process of building a wildflower garden.
Awesome. Very cool. I did not know that. I know you were a vegetable gal. I didn't know you were doing
I'm
wildflowers
venturing
too.
out of my comfort zone.
Very nice. Very nice. So let's dive in, shall we? We at SKC work exclusively with business owners, and a common question that I know we both get is, how am I doing? Or what metrics should I be looking at? So how do you answer that off the cuff when clients ask?
It's such a vague question, and it usually very much depends on the industry, the goals of the business owner. You can have the same business in the same industry with 2 completely different set of financials and different metrics. And for the business owner goals, it's totally fine. It doesn't matter, one business owner may have a goal to grow the business and reinvest in the business and show a very high, strong balance sheet. Another business owner may have a lifestyle business and they're purely in that business to take out of it what it's providing for their family or for their lifestyle. And so the metrics on the balance sheet may be completely different, which is how we usually measure the health and wealth of a business, but it may be completely fine depending on the business owner. So I think when business owners ask that, actually, I know when business owners ask that, my first question is, well, what are you trying to get out of your business? What do you want your life? What do you want this business to provide for you? Are you looking to sell in 5 years? Are you looking for your children to take over it? Are you looking to, and I say this very nicely because other entrepreneurs have said it to me, die in your chair, So it really all depends on what you're looking for.
And I think it's an indication that they don't know what they don't know. And so they know they should have some sort of, I'll use the term report card, or, we
Yes.
call them dashboards at SKC.
Yes.
They should have some sort of, again, report card that they're looking at to see how am I doing. But, to answer that question, we have to even go deeper and say, how are you doing compared to what? To your biggest
Exactly.
competitor, to yourself last year, to
Who you
the
want to be.
industry, right, to your goals. I mean,
Right.
how are you doing is such a, as you said, general question. There's just not simply enough information in it to give them a proper answer. And so I think that part of what we're going to dive into today is really going to drill down into what do we really need to be looking at as business owners and knowing about their business, because it is so important to make sure that they do have a metric or metrics to measure themselves against, because we know that what gets measured and what gets watched gets improved.
Exactly.
So we at SKC live and breathe numbers and financials every day. But to level set a bit, because our entire audience is, I'm sure, not accountants or CPAs, 2 of the basic financial statements out there are the balance sheet and the profit and loss statement, or the P&L. Typically, business owners tend to focus on, you said revenue before, which is the first line of
Yes.
the P&L, essentially. How much revenue came in to how many expenses went out, that's the P&L. Essentially focusing on, what am I paying tax on? What's the bottom line, right? What is our income number? When you dissect a P&L with a client, what do you focus on?
So I'm just going to go back 1 second. The funny thing is, if you ask any business owner, and I challenge you all to do this, and say, how did you do last year? I guarantee you they're going to measure their revenue against something, because
Yes.
that's what most business owners look at, their top line. So first, yes, of course, you can't have a business without generating revenue. If you can't generate revenue, you don't have a business. So it is very important. However, the many line items that come after the revenue are equally, if not more important. So when we're looking at certain industries, and all industries have it really, how much it costs you to generate your service or your product. We often call this the cost of goods sold. That metric in and of itself is one of the most important pieces of a business owner's P&L. It's, as we all hear about tariff refunds or costs going up and different components that are impacting businesses. But your gross profit, how much you pay, whether if you're in the service business, it's going to be salaries like us here at SKC, right? Our cost of goods sold, if you will, is our salaries.
Right.
If you're selling widgets, your cost of goods sold is how much it costs to make that widget. As those numbers change year over year and your revenue changes year over year, measuring them against one, what they were historically to see if vendors are raising their prices. Two, what's the industry average? Where should you be within your industry? Three, geographically, right? I mean, a business, same industry can look very different in New Jersey than it does in Tennessee.
Right.
So that's one of the first things I look at. I always look at a metric of labor to revenue and compare it to industry standards, because I think it's one of those items where we spend money sometimes before needing to. Right? We say we just need to hire someone to fill that gap, whatever that gap may be. And so we put somebody on it.
Right.
Because one, we don't want to deal with it. And two, we think that somebody can deal with it. So sometimes I think we just fill our challenges with people. So understanding the breakdown of where we're spending our labor dollars is very important. And then, of course, at the end, net operating profit. What are you bringing home at the end of the day? If you bring in $100, how much of that $100 are you keeping? Are you keeping $5, $10? What as a business owner are you actually keeping?
It's so funny because I was doing a year-end meeting with a client a few weeks back, and maybe a month back now, and we were looking at their bottom line and breaking it down that way. And so essentially we're looking at all of their overhead, right? Their consistent expenses that aren't going to change necessarily based on revenue. And, we were comparing them to prior years and as a percent of revenue. And they said to me, well, listen, we could scrub these numbers and, what are we going to get out of it, right? What are we going to, how much are we going to
Sure.
save? How much are we going to, be able to, pull to the bottom line? And my response to them was, well, it's not necessarily that you're going to save X. It's just the matter of it's your job to look. It's your
Right.
job to make sure that, you do have the best contract with FedEx or UPS or whomever your
Yes.
delivery system is. And it's your job to make sure that you don't just rubber stamp the renewal on the health insurance every year. It's your job to make sure that, maybe you're saving 15,000, 30,000 a year by doing these scrubs or looking at these things. But those are the things that you have to make sure that you're looking at, because otherwise they balloon out of control. And listen, everybody's always fat and happy when there's plenty of revenue.
Right.
But if you don't run your business efficiently and effectively in times when there isn't as much revenue or something changes, you're going to be scrambling. And that's not the time to renegotiate your copier lease or something like that.
It's
People look at it as small potatoes, but it's really not. And, again, I think that especially when you talk about larger companies that have purchasing power outside of maybe the owner or the CFO, your team should know that you're watching and that somebody is
Absolutely.
there, sort of peeking under the hood and looking over your shoulder. It's a good check and balance.
I think sometimes business owners, especially when they get to that, 8, 10, $15 million revenue number, they start forgetting that 1% of $10 million is $100,000.
Right.
And so I don't know about you, but I could use an extra $100,000. So saving 1%, even if it's 0.5% on this line item and 0.5% on that line item, all of these little items add up. Even if you don't want to take it home, give it back to your team, reinvest it,
Right.
however you want to use it. But making your business more efficient in all of those areas just allows you the freedom of cash to put it elsewhere, whether you want to take it home or whether you want to reinvest it into the company.
Yeah, and it rolls every year, right?
Right,
And you
right.
think about personally, how many recurring subscriptions do you have on your credit card that
Oh,
just
the
happen?
creeper expense.
Right. And all of a sudden you're like, I haven't used this in, 6 months. I didn't know I was still being charged for my Fitbit that I threw out or that got waterlogged in Aruba, whatever it was, right? And so you have to think about that in the context of the business sense.
I was doing a quarter end and we were going through the balance sheet because we always go through the balance sheet. And on a credit card for an employee, unfortunately, who had passed away last year, there was $199 balance. And they said, well, what is that? And it's the reoccurring annual fee of
Yep.
something that wasn't discontinued if you're not scrubbing what's my tech stack every year?
Right.
What subscriptions do we have?
Yep, exactly, exactly. So in this economic climate specifically, clients are very interested in EBITDA,
Mm,
which, comes off the income statement.
sure.
And, this is a term that's been thrown around because they want to know if they sell and apply a multiple to their EBITDA, what will their business be worth?
Yes.
And let me tell you, if you're listening and you're a business owner, I know that you've asked this question, even if you have no desire to sell, just because you want to know what would it possibly be worth if you did go out on the street. So, we can we can look at those things, we can dig into those. Are you finding that a lot of clients are, or a lot of business owners are wanting to know this EBITDA and understand what it is and know what that multiple would be?
Yes. So, I mean, I also force it to understand it, right? Because it does have an indication not only in value, but if you're going for a bank loan, if you're for different financing, if you're bringing on a partner, if you're, or new business owner, it does have value. And it's very funny. We're getting ready for our partner meeting later today, right? So I looked at our financials yesterday through first quarter and I calculated EBITDA. It's just something that I always do. It's just, where's our EBITDA for Q1?
Yep.
But I think that a couple of different things. One, when we talk about EBITDA, whether we're looking to understand the value of our business or we're looking to understand just, how can we make it the most efficient? I think one of the things we also have to concentrate on are what are our profit drivers? What actually increases the EBITDA? Because here's your EBITDA. Okay, great. What are you going to do with that?
Right.
But
Is
what
that
you
good? Is that bad? What do I do
exactly,
with it?
exactly. So I think we have to understand how do we increase that EBITDA for each of these different business owners, right? So where are you actually driving profit? What are your services or your products that you're offering that are creating the ability to have this profit versus your loss leaders, right? How
Mhm.
much are you doing that, oh, I do this, because it gets us in front of new clients and then we can upsell them to X. Or, sometimes if you look at your EBITDA and you take out some of your revenue lines and the expenses that go with them, you can increase your EBITDA,
Mhm.
right? So I think that, yes, understanding your EBITDA is very important. Again, I force it. But I also think it's very important to understand how do you move your EBITDA up by your profit drivers
Mhm.
and or as we talked about before expenses, right?
Right.
Because knowing your EBITDA doesn't mean anything unless you know how to do something with it and or move it.
Right, exactly. So, often you started this discussion talking about it depends on what the business owner wants, what's their goal out of the business, the lifestyle, the growth, a large sellout, if you will. And we look at the profit and loss statement sometimes for a tax outcome,
Mm.
and sometimes clients want to look at it for a potential sale, as we're
Mhm.
talking about with EBITDA. So tell us a few items, a few key hot buttons that a mature business owner should really know off the cuff, off of their P&L.
I mean, you should know your gross profit percentage, right? Your GP, which is your revenue less your cost of goods sold equals your gross profit and what that percentage is of your revenue. right? You should know that that should be a metric that everybody watches, no matter what. Um, Whether you're always trying to make it better or just ensuring that it's not going in a direction you don't want it to go
Right.
into.
And by product line or service line. If
Exactly.
you do more
100%.
than one thing, which most business owners tend to do.
Absolutely. I know some business owners that do it by SKU. They want to see very specifically, or even region or
Right.
office location, branch. It's very, how does this branch do against that branch? Who's losing money or making money? Or why? I have a client whose gross profit is different in different locations and they sell the exact same thing.
Mm,
Why? That doesn't make any sense, right? The
right.
cost is the same, the revenue so why would it be more expensive to make something in one place than it is in another? Waste, theft, you don't know, but you want to look at those types of things because that's the only way that you'd really be able to find it.
Right. That's when you ask the questions.
Exactly. So I think that, so your question was three things.
However many you think the hot
Okay.
buttons
So
are.
definitely your gross profit, your fixed expenses, things that you can't move, rent, some of these health insurance, the big items and how that compares to your revenue
Mm,
and what your break even is, right? You can't get rid of health insurance to reduce expenses. You're not going to end your lease early to get rid of expenses if your revenue goes down. What's your break even? If
mm.
you had a worst case scenario, your worst month ever, how much is it to get to zero? Um, and I mean, cash, right? And it's not on the P&L, it's on the balance sheet, so I'm cheating a little bit. But cash and how much you have out in the street, AR, right? I look at them together. So how quickly are you turning that AR into cash? So those I think are the big metrics. A lot of clients have gone through system changes. You know this, right? As systems have gotten better and clients have grown, they need to go to different systems. Well, if you haven't changed your accounting system, I'm not going to scare you, but I will let you know it's a bit of a heavy lift. And you get so caught up in the training of the new departments and all of these different things. And how do we now put our time in? Or how do we now, enter inventory in the system? All of these different components of the system that's going to be wonderful and amazing. Let's not forget to invoice our clients during this time.
Yes, please.
And I have said this to people, and they kind of looked at me like, okay, like, and then they realized 3 months in, like, oh my gosh, you're reminding us to invoice clients because you're so involved in your business and what's happening that you're not really looking at, everything else that's going on, right? You just remember to get those invoices out and to collect on it, and you'll figure the rest out.
The other piece that you mentioned about looking at the fixed costs, like the health insurance and like the rent, I find what business owners are sometimes hesitant to do or forget to do
Mm.
is actually increase their prices.
Yes. Well, they get
Because,
scared too.
well, yes,
Yes.
exactly. And so they feel as if, well, I'll just close more deals or I'll just sell more or I'll get more revenue that way.
Mm.
But if you're not doing a deep analysis of, the increased rent, your office salaries, your health insurance, those things that, again, to Andrea's point, you're not going to leave the space you're in because it gets too
You lost your
expensive.
biggest client,
Right.
right?
So you need to kind of look at those things on
Mm.
at least an annual basis
Mhm.
so that you can determine, hey, this went up X%, Y%. We really need to build that into some of our pricing increases because that's actually going to have a huge impact on us going forward.
And you made such a good point that business owners will say, I'll just sell more.
Yeah.
And I call that throwing good money at bad. Because why do you want to sell more to make less?
Right.
That doesn't make any sense. It's not logical to me. And business owners will say, "Well, I'll just sell more. We'll just increase revenue 100,000 or 200,000 next year and cover the 8% increase in our health insurance
Right.
and the 4% increase in our vendor prices and because they get nervous that they're going to lose business."
Right.
So you're acknowledging that you're taking the hit and you're going to do more work to make less. I
Right.
don't get it.
Yeah, not advisable. Not
No,
advisable.
no.
So you cheated a little bit and gave some balance sheet metrics that you want
Mm.
business owners to look at. So let's jump into the balance sheet.
Sure.
For those that don't spend a lot of time looking at their balance sheet because they're too caught up in their P&L, It actually gives a very clear picture of the health of your business. It talks about how well the business is going to survive, how it can
Mhm.
scale or is scaling, and how ultimately, if that's your wish, you're going to get a successful exit out of your business. So, can you talk about the balance sheet and what it can tell us about our business?
Yes, absolutely. So business owners always look at the P&L. I always want to start with the balance sheet. I'm sure you do too,
Yes.
because as accountants we do, and most business owners are like, I don't even know what that
Is
is.
that even right?
Yeah, what does it do, right? So let's some of the big things which I know business owners look at: cash, accounts receivable, right? It tells us all of our assets, all of our tangible assets, what we own, the desks, the computers, all of the, all of that stuff. But it also tells us how much we owe to people.
Mhm.
It tells us our trade payables. It tells us how much we owe to banks, how much we owe internally to retired partners or to whomever. It also, at the bottom of our balance sheet, tells us our equity or our book net worth. And I think this is a very I don't know if unlooked at, maybe ignored area of the balance sheet,
Misunderstood.
misunderstood and ignored.
Yeah.
A part of the financial, but your equity is essentially your net worth in that business,
Your
right?
capital
Your
invested.
capital invested. Yeah. How much have you left in? Now, some businesses are completely fine having an equity very close to zero because that means, hey, they've made a lot of money, they've taken it out of the business, they've lived their lives, and they're quite happy. Um,
Those are the lifestyle
those are the
businesses.
lifestyle
Yep.
businesses, absolutely. But if you're looking to grow your business or acquire debt to buy a business or something, banks, investors are going to look at your equity to
Mhm.
see how much you're keeping in the business and how well you're running the business. Your equity is also going to tell you how well you're running the business. Because if you have a very low equity, if you don't have distributions, that means you're inefficient somewhere in your P&L.
Right.
So the balance sheet to a sophisticated investor or bank or somebody who's actually knows what they're looking at knows that the balance sheet really tells the whole story. So you want to make sure that one, your current assets, so your cash, inventory, receivables, all of the things that can turn to cash within the next 12 months are at least one times your current liabilities. How much do you owe out in the street? How much are your credit cards? How much do you have to pay out in the next 12 months?
Right. Your
So
current month of debt, so your current year of debt service, if you have a loan you're repaying.
exactly. So if you have current assets of $500,000, you want to make sure that your current liabilities are no more than 500,000. You want at least minimum cover. I like to see two times, right? $1 million current assets,
Right.
500,000 current liabilities. That's the target. If we're 1A, fine,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But below one, no bueno.
And I explain that to clients because, we talk as much as we try not to, we do use accounting words and not everybody can
Sure.
relate to things like the current ratio and so forth. I explain it to clients that if we shut the doors right now,
Mhm.
what would you have coming in off the street, either cash sitting in the bank or accounts receivable getting collected or inventory that you can sell in the
Mhm.
next 12 months that will pay off the next 12 months of accounts payable and
Credit
whatever other
cards and
liabilities
yep.
that you might have. So that's, I think, a very clear way for people to visualize or feel what that means when you talk about that at least 1-to-1 ratio.
And similarly, the equity portion that I was referring to before, the net worth, is if you liquidated all of your assets
Right.
and paid all of your debts,
Right.
that's what you would have left over.
Right.
So it's very similar to that analogy.
Right, right. And the comment about the lifestyle business with your equity being zero, or sadly in some cases below
Negative.
zero,
Uh-huh.
because maybe we are funding losses through debt service or what
Mhm.
have you. If you're anything but a lifestyle business, you need to actually have sustainable
Yes.
equity to have a healthy company that's going to
That's
be able to continue
and,
operating.
and that equity should be growing.
Right.
It doesn't have to be growing by double digits every year, but it should show a healthy growth, a couple percentage points, unless there's a reason. You're investing back into the company. You're starting a new business line. You
Right.
purchased, a big piece of equipment. So that has depreciation, which is going to give you the losses. And so, your if your equity is negative or decreasing, we better have a story for it.
Exactly, exactly. We talked about dashboards before.
Mm.
Many of our clients use dashboards to track their metrics. How often do you recommend business owners look at their own metrics? Because I know you look at ours almost daily.
At least once a day. And it depends on what you're looking at, right? I have some clients who want to see one thing every day: how much cash was collected, how much sales were, what the receivables are, some key pointed items. I particularly look at receivables and cash collected daily,
Mhm.
and for no other reason. Well, one, you need cash to run a business, right?
Yep.
So we don't want to run out. But I also think the AR turnover, how quickly you can collect, is a very important metric to measure in your business. And so I always look at kind of aging AR, right?
Mhm.
Not just how much in a total is there, but how much is over 60 days, 90 days, 120 days if it, God forbid, gets there. And the reason why, right? You're always going to have a client or two that I'm so sorry, XYZ happened. As soon as this happens, I'm going to pay that off. I promise. I'm sorry, what have you. And you know what? Life happens and we
Right.
have to be forgiving at times. But if, 50% of your AR is over 60 days or 90 days, some's got to happen. Now, that may be just implementing a collection process,
Right.
right? It may just be, hey, by the way, turn on automated statements and send, reminders
Yeah.
out. It could be something that simple, or it could be something more meaningful in the business where you need a collections person or somebody's not delivering on the work and people don't want to pay for it. It can really tell us a lot of different indicators. So I think AR and the various buckets inside of them. And then it also depends very much on the type of business. So for a service business, for us, I'm looking at not necessarily where people spend their time, but what work is getting delivered,
Right.
right? So where are client products at, or client deliverables at?
Mhm.
And then for my business owners that have like stuff, they're selling widgets and such. It's we're looking at what's moving,
Mhm.
right? What are our top sellers? What are our top sellers compared to last year? Who are our top clients this year compared to last year? Those types of things. Because when you're selling stuff, it's generally not reoccurring like our type of business,
Right.
right? Most service business generally are reoccurring, but most product businesses are not.
Right.
So for product businesses, a lot of times, you're watching who's maybe you have a new rising salesperson. Maybe you have a new rising client that you haven't, as a business owner, made yourself out to meet yet because the salesperson has just done great bringing them in, but you didn't realize, oh my gosh, this person's bought more from me than any other customer this year so far.
Right.
So looking at those types of metrics to make sure that you're understanding what's happening in your business and what's driving that revenue, not just how much revenue is.
And that's really the great ability that dashboards give us is to connect different data sources. So, we
Mhm.
started talking about the profit and loss statement and the balance sheet, obviously, as financial statement drivers and metrics from those statements. But really, when you talk about building dashboards, you can pull from your time and billing software, you can pull
Mhm.
from, your marketing CRM and connect those things to see not only just about the AR numbers, but who is, your biggest client that's buying the
Sure.
most from you right now. And I think that that's sort of the when we talk about mature business owners, they should want that information. They may not
Oh
know how to
gosh,
get
yes.
it, but that's when you can talk to one of your dream team of financial providers and financial service providers and get those built for you. But that's really going the next deep level to get that information to give you sort of a leg up on that decision making.
Absolutely. I was actually talking with Mike at 409. For those of you who don't know, 409 is a data analytics company, and Mike is one of the owners. And we have a mutual client, and he created a dashboard that he was showing me on. They do retainer business. It's a service business, and they have retainers, and then they have hours that go against that retainer each month. And he built a system to show the business owner and the managers on almost on a daily basis where all of the projects are compared to their budget. So if your budget is 40 hours for the month on that client, if it's week 2 and you're at 35 hours, there's a big red going over budget on that, client line.
Mhm.
And so it's very helpful because I have many clients who are service business retainer. Every month they have, they're utilizing their retainer hours, but they don't know if they're over budget until the end of the month. Or
Right.
they're not looking at if they're over budget until the end of the month. Or they're using spreadsheets to pull out of their time system how many hours have we used and how many is the budget and
Somebody's
X minus
manually
Y
doing
and
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so it was just such a powerful tool. And I was like, this is amazing.
Right. We don't have to wait 30 days for information.
No, you can look at what happened yesterday and get it from April 1 to April 21.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. Do you advise clients and business owners to set goals for the company that they want to hit when it comes to evaluating their metrics?
I require it. I do. I had a client earlier this year, because every December/January we go over, what's next year look like, what's going to make this year a successful year, right? We've had this conversation
Yep.
before. And so I had a client who kind of was like, I don't know, we're just busy, and I don't know. And like sometimes your typical entrepreneur that's stressed and just can't deal with their accountant right now and doesn't want to hear like, let's plan for 2026. And I said, okay, no problem. I want you to tell me 3 things that you think are going to happen in your business this year. What's going to happen with revenue? I think it's going to grow 10%. Okay, great. Are you going to hire people? Yes, I'm going to hire 2 people. Okay, great. How much do you want to earn this year? Told me that number. And I built a budget for them and said, if things were this way, and this way, this is how much you'd earn.
Right.
So now it gets them more interested because I think initially it's like theoretical. Oh, I'm going to put together this forecast. It doesn't mean anything. I'm going to spend where I want to.
Right.
But once you see it and you say, oh, right, I do still have to pay rent and health insurance and all of these things. And the only way for me to make what I told you I wanted to make in our last meeting, I'm not going to get there by these metrics.
Right.
So, okay, maybe we have to do some things
Right.
to make this a successful year.
Right. We need the numbers, we need the goals to drive the behavior.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to instill, not that I don't know how to instill it in everybody, except saying we have to, right?
Yeah.
But how, again, going back to what you said earlier, if it's not measured, it's not managed.
Right. Right, exactly. So some of your overall insights are that a weak P&L and a strong balance sheet mean that it's time to fix operations.
Yes.
And having a strong P&L and a strong balance sheet yields strategic freedom, optionality, and exit readiness.
Mm-hmm.
So what other things should a smart business owner know and understand?
So again, I think it really comes down to your goals. Of course, as accountants, I think we're always going to push for a strong P&L and a strong balance sheet. I'm sure you advise your clients the same way I do, in the sense that making your P&L stronger, because we get the pushback, right? Oh, what's this going to do? It's a 0.5%. Oh, what's it, and I always reinforce making your business more efficient and better run or more well run will only help you. It's not going to hurt you.
Right.
So why wouldn't we do it? Whether we're going to do it for a sale, whether we're going to do it for a lifestyle business, no matter what rationale we're going to do it for, why not make it better?
Absolutely.
And honestly, most of our clients, if they don't want to make it better, they're probably not with us.
Right. Right, exactly. And that's the challenge, is to, we spend some time when we first onboard new clients educating them a little bit.
Right, absolutely.
Because maybe they've not had these types of conversations in their current accountant CPA relationship. And these are the things that we absolutely focus on. And, we do have our own list of non-negotiables that, clients have to meet with us at least quarterly.
Right.
We have to talk about goals, we have to talk about budgets, we have to talk about EBITDA. And so, if they're not aligned in wanting to go that route with us, they don't usually stay, or in some cases we don't even onboard them because we know it's not a good match.
Well, it doesn't, right. There's no value.
Right.
Why pay me?
Exactly.
I don't want you to pay me for nothing.
And I think that it's important to understand that it's the long game, right? It's a
Absolutely.
marathon and each year is its own race, but
Hmm.
we have to look at it from building the value of the company and building the health of the company to have that, that longevity.
Absolutely. Our decision, it's just like your health and what you eat. The decisions you make today are going to impact your body tomorrow. The decisions you make in 2025 for your business impacts 2026. And what you do this year is going to impact next year. We don't make decisions in a vacuum. The decisions we make definitely impact our future profitability, or health and wellness of the company.
Great. Awesome. So before we say goodbye, I ask all of our guests this closing question.
Uh-huh.
Can you leave us with one thing that you wish you knew when you were 25 that you have since learned?
So many things. My gosh, I don't know where to
No
start.
one likes the one thing, so you can give us
Yeah.
more than one thing if it's too hard
One
to
thing
narrow it
I
down.
wish I knew at 25. I'm gonna say that struggles equal growth.
Hmm.
And to embrace them when they happen, even though we don't want to, and sometimes we just want to hide and cry and crawl. And but on the other side of that is always growth. So
Yes.
I wish I knew that then. I try to remind myself now while I go through it that that's actually what's occurring. But yeah, I wish I knew it much more then.
Yes, you got to go through the dark to see the light.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us today,
Thank you
Andrea,
for
and
having
sharing your
me.
insights. To the audience, thank you for spending time with us on SKC Office Hours. Remember, at SKC, we don't just help you run your business, we help you grow it. Wishing you a very productive day.